Howdy folks, Sapper here, aka Sean, and I'm bringing you Next War, World War III. This will be turn 4, and I believe it is part 2. When last we were together, I believe that we were about ready to start the first strike phase of turn 4. So I've kind of got my missile markers placed where I want to do some hits. So I've got one here. I've got two going to that sag. So we're trying to take that bridge out. Well, look at that. Every time. All right. So the Chinese, they still have plenty of cruise missiles left, but I decided there's not really a lot of targets that I want to hit at the moment. Cruise missiles, you're kind of limited what you can hit. And I just kind of decided that I wasn't really going to use any. Well, I take that back. I'm going to use one. So those are 3 US, and then we're going to try to hit that SAM track and get it way down here. You know, I could hit airfields and air bases, but kind of at the moment with the current air situation, I think that China is okay. You know, that could come back to bite me. It's like, you know, continue to beat them up while they're down, right? Like if I have the advantage, continue to press the advantage. But I kind of, because China's not going to get a whole lot more cruise missiles, so I kind of decided, you know, I'll save those, and then if things get bad, then I'll always, you know, it's better to have that arrow in your quiver, I guess, so to speak. So that was kind of my reasoning behind that. But that's what we've got over here. We've got the 3 US missiles there, or 2 at the SAG, and then 1 at that bridge to try to finish that bridge off. And then we've got the Chinese one going towards the SAM track. So and then, well, we'll get to Korea when we get to Korea. Let me try to resolve everything over here. So what we'll do is, let me see here. Let me do the SAG. What's the SAG's AA? I think it is a 2. Yeah, the AAA for a Chinese SAG is 2. So what we will do is we'll roll on the AAA with a -1. So we'll just do... Actually, I'm sorry. It's not... Is it a -1? Yeah, it's a -1. Because that's Naval AAA. Is it overcast? Nope, it is not overcast. Alright, so. Yep, that's just going to be a straight up -1 on the AAA 2. So nothing happens. Well, I actually can't see that die, but there you go. Those are definitely not results that are good enough to do anything. So those two, unfortunately, actually, you know what? I take that back. The cruise missiles hit. They were not hit by AAA. I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here, aren't I? So the cruise missiles make it. They will hit their intent. Well, they might hit their intended target. So let's go ahead and move it over here. All right, so this is, where are we at? There we go. There we go. There we go. That's what line we're rolling on. So that's versus naval point detection. They are point detected, so that's -1. And then +1. Is there a strike marker on that? I think that +X only means if the naval unit's conducting the strike. So there's nothing there. So basically it is a straight roll. I need to roll a 5 or lower. Hey, look at that. Look who came in here to see me. What you doing? What you doing? You were outside because you smell like you were outside. All right, so let's roll. We want to roll low. Well, the 8's not good, but the 2 is, so that will give him another strike 1 marker. Now, what the Chinese needs to decide they want to do, we can voluntarily retreat, or take that strike 2. I don't think I want to take the strike 2 on that naval unit. So let me see, where do we go? May retreat to nearest friendly port or at sea box. I think we don't have a friendly, well, yeah, I will go ahead and these guys will retreat. They're going to go back over to the they're going to go back to the Chinese holding box. And then at the end of the turn, they will be able to basically get rid of that strike 1 marker. I think I'm doing that right with the naval stuff. But again, I could be wrong. You never know. All right, so now let's do the bridge. So we have cruise missile, and I believe it is flat because it's a bridge. Non-U.S. cruise missile, no. Oh, versus bridge or beachhead. I knew there was some kind of DRM, so that's a +2. So we're rolling on this column right here with a +2. So that's a 7. And that +2 kind of screwed me because otherwise that bridge would have been gone. I knew, something told me that I should have thrown an extra cruise missile in there at it. But I didn't really want to waste them, right? Because cruise missiles, you don't get a lot of them. So I was really reluctant. I was like, nah, I don't want to overkill, but we can see that it got me. All right, and then the last thing is we're going to do the Chinese one on the SAM track. So let's see, we're going to do air defense tracks, cruise missile. Let's see here. Versus enemy AA, no. I thought there was something on there with Chinese cruise missiles get a +1, but because they're garbage or not as good. Maybe that's an older. I'm almost positive I remember seeing something about. I'll bet you it's on an older. It's on an older one, so we're rolling right here. So we need to basically get a 3 or lower, and that is a miss. So looks like there was nothing going on there. Let's go over to the other map and let me see what I did. So the only thing we have now, I'm allowing the Chinese to use their cruise missiles on this map too, but the North Koreans have the Scuds, and they've pretty much been all shot down because of that THAAD missile battery that's way over there. So, and they only have, it looks like 3 Scud missiles left. So I'm not even gonna. The North Koreans have decided they're not going to use they're not going to use their Scuds. The Chinese aren't going to throw any cruise missiles at anything. The air defense tracks have been wrecked pretty good. I considered doing some installations, but right now the North Koreans are doing okay. That obviously the air situation is going to deteriorate as time goes by, but we're going to throw 2 cruise missiles at this bridge right here. And this time I did throw 2 because the bridge only has a strike 1 marker on it, so we're trying to hit that bridge right there. And then I'm going to hurl a cruise missile at that airfield with hopes of causing some collateral damage. Hitting the airfield, but also causing collateral damage on that helicopter. All right, so let me look. I don't think that cruise missile strike is not going to be affected by. Yeah, you can't do anything against. You can't shoot down the cruise missiles except with the naval gunfire. So let's get that there. We'll do two cruise missiles against the bridge. Oops. And a pair of ones. Now that's what I needed over on the Taiwan side. So those are +2s because of their against bridges. So that is, let's see, what is that? That is Highland Woods. Actually, I don't think that matters. Or is that? That's not Highland. That is Highland. Yep. So that's still the same track. So that is. Those are 3s. So that bridge is destroyed. Where is... All right, so we've got a destroyed bridge right here. That is going to make things difficult for the North Koreans. Basically, so we can't trace supply along this road anymore. So we're going to have to figure out, I think basically that's going to affect, let's see here. It's going to affect some of this stuff right there. I'll have to look at it a little bit more in depth, but it is going to make a difference. We can trace some supply, and that's what these represent. That's the limits of that urban hex. So I'm going to have to move some headquarters back. It's just one of those things I kind of forgot about, didn't pay attention. The North Koreans overextended themselves. But this is going to make a difference with... So you got 8 points. So that would have been, I think it's a half. So that would have been 1, 2, 3. Yeah, basically all of these guys are going to be affected. I'll have to see how these... Yeah, it makes a huge difference because we'll have to trace back this way and then use this secondary road. I think secondary road is 1 movement point per. But we'll figure that out in a little bit. We'll figure that out during the supply phase. So now let's try to hit this airfield. And that airfield is in Highland, I think. Or is that Rough? Yeah, that airfield is Rough Woods. Yeah, all right. And that's a 4. So that is a strike 1. There we go. All right, let's do this. Strike 1 with some collateral damage. And then at the end of the strike phase is when we actually figure out the collateral damage. All right, so that's it. Cruise missiles are done. Now I think we're going to move on to airstrikes. So let's figure out, I'll be back in a little bit and we'll figure out what we're doing with airstrikes. Just finish up, so I'm still doing the first strike phase. So I've allocated all strikes for both sides because both sides allocate strikes first. And then, so the non-allied side allocates airstrikes, helicopters, and escorts, which I've done. Then the allies allocate wild weasels, airstrikes, and all their stuff. And then the non-allied attempts detection, and then the allies resolve. So basically I've gotten to I haven't resolved the wild weasels, but I have done everything up to that point. So we'll kind of go over what we're doing here. So in Taiwan, we're going to go ahead and strike. Let me get my pointer out. Pointing with your finger just doesn't work. So we're going to hit this guy with both of those aircraft. We're trying to weaken them up. The terrain is not really favorable here. So even if I get these guys here, they're attacking across the non-bridged side, which is not the most advantageous thing to do. So I'm going to try to, I think, get across the river here so that way I can get the 2 the 2 hex advantage on this guy here. Or actually, it's not really a 2 hex advantage. You don't get a DRM for attacking from 2 different hexes, but at least you can get more units in there, right? We're going to do a helo strike on this bridge. Hopefully we can finish this bridge off, but I'm not going to hold my breath for that. The Allies are doing that. Let's see here. We're going to send in a couple bombers to hit this guy. The Chinese are. Helo strike on this headquarters. And then we're doing a double helo strike on this stack here. Let's see here. What we'll probably end up doing is allocating one. Now, we're going to see if we can take out that mechanized infantry. That's what we'll do. I might change my mind between now and then, but, you know, who knows, whatever. So that's the state of affairs for strikes that are going to happen. The Allies decided to try to do a Wild Weasel strike on the detection track. And I must not have been looking at things right, but I sent these guys in there with no air support or no escorts. Well, there's not any escorts anyway, so I was kind of hoping that, and yeah, the detection track's pretty high up there, but I was kind of hoping that they did not get early detected. Well, they did get early detected. So the Chinese sent in a couple crappy interceptors. I mean, they've got plenty of good ones there. They're all 4s and 5s. Well, most of them are 4s and 5s. That's the last 3. So sent in some crappier interceptors, and luckily both of them missed, I believe. Or they got like a disadvantage result or whatever. So I decided to voluntarily abort this Wild Weasel. So where was he? I think he couldn't. Yeah, there's no way he'd have been able to fly that mission from Japan because he's a medium ranged. So he had to have been in the Rock. So we're going to send him to the aborted box. And these 2 guys will go back to the flown box. They did their good job, guys. You did what you were supposed to do. Early detection, that can go there. Go ahead and erase that. So that's it for Wild Weasels over here. And then over here in Korea, got a little bit more lucky, right, with the Wild Weasels here. So they were only detected. Both missions were detected. This guy survived ADF. This guy survived ADF. This guy was rocked a little bit by ADF. I did give them escorts because South Korea has plenty of escorts available. So, but they unfortunately they weren't needed. So these guys will go to the flown box because they've done what they needed to do. So I just have to roll for the results on the strike chart for the Wild Weasels and determine what's going on. But on the strike side of the house, we're going to throw in a couple of these crappy bombers to try to weaken this guy up. We're going to do a helo strike on one of these guys here to kind of weaken that up a little bit. The Chinese are actually committing aircraft, so we're going to try to hit this guy. We're going to try to knock out some of that mechanized infantry. We're going to do a helo strike right here. And then I think the last thing that the Americans are going to do is try to hit this chemical weapons facility. So that's it for strike phase. Well, not it. That is where I'm at with the strikes. I just have to resolve the Wild Weasels and then figure out who gets detected and who gets shot down and all that good stuff for both Korea and Taiwan. So I'll be back in a little bit. So I just resolved the Wild Weasel strikes and got horrible rolls. I mean, there's 5 and a 6 pilot rating, but because it's overcast, the overcast equals out the pilot rating. This guy had a +2, so 3 Wild Weasels, and I was only able to reduce the detection track by 1. So yeah, that did not go very well for the Allies. It could have gone way better, and that was basically a flop. I think for this one he rolled like a 9 or something, so pretty bad results. So anyway, let's go ahead and we will go ahead and figure out what happens with all these strikes here, detections and all that good stuff. That's going to take a little bit, so I'll be back. I've just wrapped up the Allied strike phase, which wasn't a lot because honestly they didn't have a whole lot that they were they were committing to, at least this time. So I did. So there's the trying to hit that chemical weapons depot in between those two aircraft, and both of those aircraft have a strike rating of 5, which is good. All right, you don't get too much. There's only a couple. I think the only things that are better are these bombers right here. Again, typical roll results. All right, the overcast weather didn't help. It basically nullified their pilot ratings because the overcast weather gives you a +2. And we had a pilot rating of -2 and -1. So this was the break-even one, and this was the +1. So that gave me basically a strike 1 result. So yeah, that was very disappointing. And then, of course, there's my helicopter on that bridge. So we can't get it. We couldn't get the bridge. We rolled a 9 and we're not able to destroy that bridge. And that seems to be, I mean, so earlier in the game when I did have that bridge, and I think it was this one here as well that I destroyed. I mean, I was surprised that I got lucky, but I used a lot of assets to take those bridges out. I remember using cruise missiles and stealth bombers and all kinds of other stuff. The amount of assets that you have to use to destroy a bridge is pretty extraordinary. And in real life, again, I don't think it doesn't usually work out that way. Of course, hey, I'm rolling fickle dice to figure out what my outcomes are. And the dice are not always your friend. So anyway, what we're going to do now is we're going to go through the detection phase to detect all of these Chinese and Korean airplanes and helicopters and everything else. So I will be back when I figure out who's detected and who's not. Although I don't think it's really going to make... early detection is not going to matter for Taiwan because there's no interceptors. So basically the Chinese can just fly through the skies without fear of anything at the moment. Korea, we do have some pretty good aircraft. So we will see what happens. Basically, we have to hope that our air defense networks will take down whatever planes are out there, which in Taiwan is okay. Well, I wouldn't even say it's okay. It's barely holding on. We can detect people, but probably can't shoot them down. And of course, in Korea, you might as well forget about it. So I will be back in a bit with the results. All right, it's been a pretty dismal strike phase for both sides for the most part. And you know what? I just realized what I did is So for Korea, I can understand because the overcast weather really makes a difference. And I don't remember, it's sunny here. I think I applied the overcast modifier, but you know what? I'm not going to go back and redo. Actually, it wouldn't be. You know what? It wouldn't be that hard. So I'm going to go ahead. You know what? Forget about it. I'm not going to go back and redo it. So basically what happened, let's see here. What had happened was, so we early detected a lot of guys, but because Taiwan has no interceptors, it doesn't matter. So these two planes, after ADF fire, was able to cause a strike 1 on this top unit here. So that is done. This helicopter strike was unsuccessful. These 2 helicopter strikes were able to cause a strike 1 to the top unit there, which is good. This helicopter did take fire. It was reduced, but it was able to continue the mission. So we did get a couple of strikes. I mean, it wasn't completely a waste, but I think I applied the overcast modifier for this, but that's what's going to happen when you're dealing with a bunch of... I'm basically playing 2 games in one, right? So these guys will go to the flown track. Let's see. This can move this out of here. This was basically... That was disappointing with the bridge. I'm not going to lie on that. That was super disappointing. These guys over here were able to cause a strike 1 on that motorized infantry, so that's definitely good for the Chinese. And those guys will go to the flown box. Yeah, I need to keep my weather straight because weather does matter. All right, that can come out of here. Let's see. No, I'm not gonna be able to get that. All right, what else we got here? I think that cleans. Oh, where's my eraser? Let me get that ND. That ND is no detected. That just helps me remember that. Because sometimes you have so many things on the board, you forget who you rolled for and who you didn't roll for. So that just reminded me that it was a no detect or not detected. All right, let's see what we got over here. Yeah, the results over here were pretty cruddy. So all of this resulted in nothing. Nothing happened here. Nothing happened here. Nothing happened here. I was able to get a strike 1 on the top unit here, which is a 6-8 infantry with a 5 efficiency rating. So now it is a 3-4 with a 4. And I think that's it. All right, so I'll clean this up, and then I think we can do, we can conduct naval strikes. There won't be, the only naval unit over here is that. And then, if I'm not mistaken, I do believe that naval strikes have to be within their range, right? So it's got to be like this guy can conduct a naval strike within 2. And I think that's it. So there's only one naval unit that can actually conduct a strike. In fact, what I will do is I'll just beat this guy up some more. Let's see what we can do. See if we can hit him a little bit harder. So that's a naval 2. Yeah, it doesn't matter. So the good thing about the naval strikes is as long as you're within range, it doesn't matter what the doesn't matter what. Let me get my train of thought. It doesn't matter what the terrain is. The only thing that matters is as long as it's in range. And that's a 0, and that is good. So that is a strike 2. So I believe a strike 2 added to a strike 1 that'll reduce. Basically, that guy's reduced strike marker gets removed. So there we go. That was a successful naval strike right there. He was already point detected, so it doesn't really matter. And now, let's make sure. I think that's it. Naval bombardment, roll for collateral damage, and then we can do artillery and headquarters strikes. So we have one case where we have collateral damage, and that is over here. And that is this airfield right there. So we'll go ahead and roll. That is a strike 1 on an airfield. So basically I need to roll a 1 or a 0. And that is a 4, so nothing happens there. Now I need to roll against the helicopter. Again, that's a 1 or a 0. And nothing happens. So that gets replaced with a plain old strike 1 marker. There we go. Now we've got, I still have to clean up this map, but now we've got headquarters and artillery strikes. And there's a lot of headquarters and artillery here. Headquarters are not always good to use for strikes. It's better to kind of hold off on those and use them to support an actual attack or whatever. But there is plenty of artillery over on the side. There is one rocket artillery over in Taiwan that the Chinese managed to land. So we'll be back in a bit. So it's been a tough, I've sat here and I've thought about this for a couple of minutes. Using your headquarters and artillery, you can do strikes with them, but you can also use them to support combat missions, right, or attacks. So basically, with a headquarters, as long as that superscript, as long as it's within 4 hexes, you can support your subordinate units, and it basically adds that number to their attack, or it would add that number to their defense. So that can be, sometimes that can be pretty powerful. That could be that could result in a column shift, right? And artillery also basically gives you a column shift. So do you use them for a strike, or do you use them to get those column shifts? And I think I would rather use them for the column shift benefit rather than the being able to put a strike marker. Now, if there was a guy out there that had a strike 2 marker and I was looking to, so if you have a strike 2 and you cause one more strike, then that basically becomes a step loss. I would do that, but there's nobody that really fits that case here. Or if you put a strike marker on a headquarters, it takes one of the capabilities away. So I think I'm good on the headquarters and artillery strikes, and we'll go on to whatever the next phase is. I don't remember, but I'll be back in a bit. All right, I just conducted the first supply phase, and it's not, supply is generally not an issue over there in Taiwan unless it's a storm turn. But over here, it took me a while to figure out, because so you have supply sources which are urban, supply depots, edges of the map, but those are too far away to matter. North Korea has a unique problem where their urban centers are up north pretty far too. So there was that supply depot that was here that the Allies did destroy, which was kind of a smart move on their part. So basically, I wasn't paying attention to supply and overextended this area over here. So I created an MSU. What I'll end up doing is driving it down here. And as long as I keep that MSU within 6 of this urban area, it will extend it another 4. And then a headquarters can extend it another 4. So that's kind of how you go about, trying to keep up with supply. I did attempt to do emergency resupply of that headquarters. Basically, what you do is you expend 3 supply points. You have to roll a 0, a 1, or a 2 to resupply headquarters. If the headquarters gets resupplied, then anybody that's subordinate to him within range will also be in supply. So I spent 3 supply points and rolled and did not get what I needed. So that's kind of, emergency resupply is tough. If you want to do it to a headquarters, you can also try to resupply individual units. And I'm not looking at the chart right now, but it's a little bit easier. I think you can roll maybe a 3 or a 4 or lower, but that only gets you 1 unit, whereas the headquarters would get you everybody that's subordinate to that headquarters. So we gambled, and it didn't pay off. Let's see here. Had some Allied units that are not in supply because the North Koreans interdicted that highway, and because of the refugees, basically highways become primary roads become secondary roads, and then secondary roads are like 1.5 times whatever the terrain is. So I was able to trace here and then around, and then I think to here to that headquarters. But the headquarters can extend it 4, so if you look at the roads, that would be, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, or not even 4 here. So this guy right here, nope, not that one. This guy right here is out of supply, unfortunately. And then there's a couple of other situations. This stack here is out of supply. This guy here is out of supply because there's no roads into that hex. And the same can be said for this. This is a marsh hex where he crossed the river, but there's no bridges across the river. There's no roads, so you can't get supply there. So there's a few units that are out of supply. And let me look real quick. I think out of supply, it reduces a lot of different things. Mm. All right, out of supply effects. Have attack and movement. -1 to the ER. No movement in elite reaction or exploitation segments. Air mobile class units cannot use air mobile movement. Intrinsic, so that's like the 101st, I think, is the only one that has intrinsic. Headquarters and artillery don't have any combat capabilities. Headquarters give you no ADF DRMs. Now that's interesting. I didn't know that. And you can't receive replacements. So what I need to do is, I guess, rotate all my headquarters and artillery units that are out of supply, which is quite a few. There's several here. I think there's one there. There's a couple. All right, I have just finished up the initiative movement segment. It took me a while. Again, it's very tough to you have to put a little bit of thought into how you want to move things on this in Korea, just because there are a lot of units. You don't want to overstack. Overstacking impedes movement. Sometimes you can see the clutter on the map, right? You can see how cluttered it is. Sometimes you can't see the underlying terrain of the hex. Sometimes you can't tell what kind of road is underneath you, if it's primary or secondary or anything like that. So, it takes a little bit of time. But, obviously the choke point is right around here, right? Because you got the rivers. You have a lot of big units like that one, or at least very units that are have high defense values. And they are in DMZ hexes, so they get the column shift and all that stuff. So basically, it's going to be a stalemate kind of right here, or not much is going to happen. I'm not going to say a stalemate, but what I'm thinking is these guys are just going to kind of fix. The North Koreans are going to fix in place to hold these guys here, and then they're just going to flank around. That's kind of the idea. I've opened up the hole right now, so they're going to start moving through. But again, we have to get through. Let me get my tweezers real quick. We have to get through. The problem is we have to get through. If you see the little fortifications, so basically the fortifications prevent you from using the road in that hex. Once you've occupied the hex, then it's pretty much considered clear, right? So basically you move in and stop. And then during the next movement phase, you'll be able to move through it because it's cleared. So it kind of slows you down a little bit. And these blue hexes, the fortifications are too deep all along the DMZ. So I'm getting to the point in this area right here where I have, let's see, yeah, right there, that one's clear. There's no fortification in it. So I'm getting to the point now where this road is starting to open up. And once I get that completely open, then I'll just be able to start funneling plenty of units through there. However, we've got the Americans that are coming in. So we've got some 82nd guys. Looks like some Marines. Yep, 82nd and some Marines. Yeah. All right, whatever. And then, of course, we've got the 2nd Infantry Division right here. So, that might stymie things a little bit. Didn't do much here just because of the whole out of supply situation. Simply moving this MSU to here extends the supply. So I can go 4 motorized hexes from here. So it doesn't affect the supply situation right now. But during the next supply phase, the second supply phase, these guys will be in supply. So they basically got slowed down for a turn. Right here, kind of took over that little town right there. That's easy. You don't have to do any kind of clearing operation or anything like that. But then I moved in a unit because there's that city there. So they're underneath the clearing marker during the exploitation movement. I'll probably move more guys in there depending on what might happen there. You never know. Those guys might get sneaky and decide to come in, so You know, that's basically what's happened. Anybody that's candid, you know, the 45 degrees or whatever, those are people that moved. So let's get a good aerial view. So this is the west side of the Korean Peninsula. So we're basically moving east. So you can kind of see what's going on. Trying to back up without knocking myself over with my chair. And then we got this whole out of supply situation here. Not really much to do on the naval display for the Chinese because there's only those 2 units in the straits. And they're going to stay there because I want to kind of try to prevent that carrier battle group from moving in. I don't want the Americans in there. Move the 3 amps back to the People's Republic of China box. There were 2 amps that I moved over. Oh, stupid light, man, there's always something. So we've got, let me see what we got. We've got, it looks like, oh, you can't see that. There we go. So we've got a mechanized infantry, and then there's 2 headquarters underneath that. Move some rocket artillery up, and then just reposition some guys. I took, this guy was reduced, and he was here, so I moved him off the line, moved a couple Marines onto the line. I want to get these airborne guys. I really want to get them out of combat, right? I want to be able to do some other stuff with them, like maybe do an airborne drop onto Penghu Island or the Paracels or one of those other places. I want to be able to try to free them up, but right now I just can't do it. I've got all these guys that are here that I'm trying to get over there. I need this port because that port has a stacking, so you can move 3 sea transport points worth of stuff into that port. And then I have the beachhead, which will allow me to do 2. So that means if I can get that port, that'll give me 5 stacking points every movement turn. So these guys are just piling up in China, and I can't do a thing with them. So that's what I'm trying to do, is that I got to get that port. So, you know, that will be an interesting experiment for you know, a later playthrough of Next War Taiwan, is trying to, you know, playing around with landing zones, right? Like I decided to land here this game, maybe next game, you know, try coming in on this side of the island. You've got these 2 amphibious landing zones. You got spots here. There's a port here. So that's always an interesting thing, is like, where would the actual invasion occur? Obviously, being that China is over that direction, the most natural place to invade would be the west side of the island. And I kind of went with that, right? The center west side of the island. But a future playthrough of Next War Taiwan, try out something else just to see what happens. But that's it for movement for the Chinese and the North Koreans. Now we'll have to straighten out all these counters and do the combat segment. So I think this will probably be it for this video. I've got to combine it with another probably 10 or 15 minutes worth of stuff, so it should be a fresh new video, but this will end part 2, I believe.